Hey, what is going on, guys? In this video we're doing a comparison of the Samsung Galaxy Note 4 up against the Google Motorola Nexus 6 smartphone. So we'll start with the notification light. On the left side you'll notice the Note 4 has a blinking notification light, where on the right side there is a Nexus 6. Even though half the body is being cut off from this picture, there's actually no notification light on the device itself. It's rather disappointing, especially for a Nexus device. Underneath the Note 4 right now I have the Nexus 6, and you can just barely see that it's popping out. It's a little bit wider and longer than the Note 4. And these millimeters in difference might not seem like a big deal, but considering I use the Note 4 as my daily device, so I'm used to phablet sized devices, the Nexus 6 is too large. However, in terms of weight, they're almost equal. There's not much difference, but it's kind of weird that the Nexus 6 is this large, especially considering that there's a S Pen stylus stuck inside the body of the Note 4 as well. Now when it comes to appearance, this is all a matter of personal preference, but I'll have to say the Nexus 6 is the better looking of the two devices. Samsung hasn't really changed the way the Note devices look. They don't look that great, and the home button isn't too eye-catching either. Keep in mind that both devices are also not dust and water resistant. When holding the Note 4, it feels okay because it is somewhat comfortable for a phablet sized device, and the texture at the back is rather okay. But the Nexus 6, despite it being larger, has a slight advantage here because the back is curved. So it's kind of a toss-up as to which one is more comfortable. The Note 4 is slightly smaller, the Nexus 6 is larger, but it has a curved back, which feels more natural in the hand to hold. Alright, so let's talk about those massive displays for a smartphone. The Nexus 6 is running a AMOLED display, whereas the Note 4 is running a Super AMOLED display. And in terms of resolution, both of them are the same. They're 2560 by 1440, which basically makes it 1440p, 2K, or Quad HD, whatever you prefer to call it. In terms of sharpness and light output, they both perform equal. Both of them have stunning, amazing screens. Now the Nexus 6 looks fantastic and the color output looks great, but color output is a little bit better on the Note 4. This is actually because the Note 4 has some saturation color options. This is something that Samsung has included. Now you do have the option to turn that off. So in terms of sharpness and light output, they're equal, but in terms of color pop, well, the Note 4 is the better of the two. In terms of storage, the Note 4 only comes with 32 gigs of internal storage options available. However, there is a micro SD card slot, so you can expand the external storage up to 128 gigs. Whereas the Nexus 6 only comes in 32 or 64 gigs of internal storage. There's no micro SD card slot, unfortunately. But moving over to the RAM, both devices have 3 gigs packed inside, but you will notice that the RAM used on the Note is a lot. This is actually because there's a lot of exclusive Samsung features, the Stylus features. This is taking up a huge amount of RAM. It doesn't mean performance bad, but there's a large difference, whereas the Nexus 6 has a lot to spare. Now for the processor of the Note 4 and the Nexus 6, things can be a little bit different or the same. The North American version of the Note 4 has the same processor and GPU as the Nexus 6. However, the international version of the Note 4 has a octa-core Exynos processor, which is different, and of course the GPU is also different. Regardless of which version you have of the Note 4, I noticed that its performance is excellent and outstanding. When using multi-window mode or just switching between apps, it performs pretty great, and in terms of playing high graphic Android games, it performs fantastic. I do notice that when switching between apps, it's a little bit slower than the Nexus 6. This is nothing that's going to ruin your experience by any means necessary. I just noticed that it's a little bit slower than the Nexus 6. Now when it comes to just general multitasking, switch between apps, I did mention that it's a little bit better than the Note 4, but nothing that you would really notice too much. The only thing I find kind of weird is that switching to the camera app or just switching functions in the camera app itself is slower, which I find kind of bizarre. But generally speaking, this is a very snappy and speedy device, and gaming on the Nexus 6 is no exception at all. It performs fantastic. The GPU and processor do well. Now in regards to connectivity, both devices do support the usual like GPS, NFC, Bluetooth, DLNA, LTE, Wi-Fi, which supports 802.11a, b, g, end, and AC. Now to mention the differences. The Nexus 6 can do screen mirroring to a media player, specifically the Nexus Player or Google Chromecast, using something called Cast Screen. The problem with Cast Screen is that so far it's exclusive to Google media players, whereas at one point Google was really pushing Mirrorcast a lot. And Mirrorcast is the much more universal approach to screen mirroring. As you can see right now with the Note 4, my smart TV and Blu-ray media player both have Mirrorcast built in. In fact, it's a lot more popular feature than Cast Screen is. The other thing to keep in mind is that the Note 4 also has an IR blaster, so I can use it as a remote control for my home theater devices. And of course it has download booster, which allows me to combine my Wi-Fi and LTE speeds together. Let's switch gears and talk about the rear cameras of both devices. Both of them are able to record in 4K, which is 2160p, and what you're seeing now is footage taken with the Note 4 camera, except it's been compressed to 1080p to match the rest of this video, and the audio is being recorded with my microphone. In terms of picture quality and video quality in good lighting conditions and low lighting conditions, the Note 4 has probably the best camera I've ever used on a smartphone. Not only that, there's a lot of color pop, not oversaturation, but it does look great. It looks very vibrant and fresh. In terms of the front-facing camera, the Note 4 is able to record in 1440p. Nothing outstanding though, it's still not that great compared to a lot of regular 1080p footage you want to see in a movie, but it's pretty respectable nonetheless. And this time you're seeing footage taken with the rear camera of the Nexus 6, again except for the audio which is taken from my microphone. And it doesn't have as much color pop as, say, the Note 4 camera. In terms of sharpness, they're pretty equal. I would say that the Note 4 camera is just a little bit sharper, but this is like me being nitpicky because I'm looking for the difference because of this comparison video. One thing that does annoy me is that the Note 4 camera in 4K footage is able to record very smooth, whereas when panning left and right very slowly with the Nexus 6 camera, I notice a little bit of stuttering. Nothing that would, say, destroy your footage or make the camera useless, but it is there. However, the odd thing is though, when you're panning left and right very fast, it looks okay. 1080p recording is also okay with the Nexus 6, and its front-facing camera records in 1080p, which is far from being great, but it's okay for today's standards. The Note 4 camera app used to be really complicated, but things have gone a long way. It's become a lot more simplified, but there's a ton of options available. Things are very easy to navigate and find. You have a whole bunch of options and they're clearly labeled as to what you want to do. And of course, if you want more functions, you can always download more, exclusive to the Note 4 of course. Then of course the front-facing camera, well, is not a major deal, but a lot of people are taking a lot more selfies. There's easy selfie taking mode, there's a wide selfie mode, so you can take a large group panorama selfie, which is actually a pretty cool feature and it works pretty great, where things aren't as good on the Nexus 6 camera app. Now this is stock Google camera app, and notice the options on the left, they appear and then disappear. People who are new to Android or not too tech savvy won't know how to get those options back up. They won't know they have to swipe from the side of the screen to bring the options back. I understand Google is looking for a very clean, minimalistic look, but it actually kind of backfires here. Not only that, the amount of options available and camera filters, well, there's next to none here. The only real cool feature is, well, panorama, which almost every camera app has, and the photosphere, which allows you to make Google Street View photos. And switching between camera modes is rather slow. So it's better off actually downloading a third-party camera app from the Google Play Store if you're using the Nexus 6. Alright, so in this portion of the clip, I'm recording through my camera mic because I'm doing my speaker comparison test. Both phones will have their volume maxed out. I'm going to play the exact same clip from my YouTube channel. It's a comparison of the Moto 360 up against the LG G Watch R smartwatches. You can find a link to that video in the video description. I mean, playing them from the exact same time spot as well. Now, for the Note 4, because it has one speaker on the back of the device, midway through the playback, I'm going to lift it up slightly. Whereas the Nexus 6, I'm just going to let it rest there because it has dual front-facing speakers, one here, one here. Okay, so let's start with the Note 4. The digital part. 360 does not have a lot of watch faces built in it. In fact, it's kind of embarrassing how little watch faces there are built inside, but with this Connect Android app on your smartphone, you can actually customize the watch faces. And now for the Nexus 6. The 360 does not have a lot of watch faces built in it. In fact, it's kind of embarrassing how little watch faces there are built inside, but with this Connect Android app on your smartphone, you can actually customize the watch faces a little bit. Okay, so what I'm noticing is that obviously with the camera mic, it's hard for you guys to tell, but with my own ears, the Nexus 6 is definitely louder. Not only that, the sound is a lot sharper and clearer. It's not as good as the HTC One M8 and the boom sound technology, but it's definitely better than the Note 4. Both devices have a 3220 mAh battery, but the Note 4 actually performs a little bit better, and this is surprising considering it has a lot more exclusive Samsung features running in the background compared to the Nexus 6. Not by a massive amount of battery difference, but there is one, and the Note 4 is better. Both devices do support quick recharge, so you can recharge your battery very fast in a short amount of time, whereas the Nexus 6 has wireless Qi charging and the Note 4 doesn't. The Nexus 6 has one power saving mode, whereas the Note 4 has two power saving modes. And these power saving modes reduce the performance of the phone, but greatly improve the performance of the battery. The Nexus 6 only has one real exclusive feature, which is called Ambient Display. So if the device is on a flat surface and you receive a notification or you pick up the device, the screen will turn on. And this is kind of cool, but it actually also really annoying, as I sometimes pick up the device and put it straight into my pocket. I've accidentally unlocked the screen. Fortunately, that can be turned off. Otherwise, the Nexus 6 running stock, clean Android Lollipop. This is Android bare bones. In a lot of ways it's good, and some people like the clean minimalistic feel, but in a lot of ways it's also bad. For example, turning mobile data on and off requires a double swipe, double tap. It's not a quick one swipe, one toggle, unlike the Note 4. Not only that, changing the sound mode is really annoying. You can't just simply activate vibrate mode or sound mode for alerts. You have to change the volume. And there's no silent mode. You can't turn off vibrate and sound mode at the same time. And I know there's a priority notification, but that requires a lot of tweaking. Overall, the system interface is rather confusing for new people to Android or non-tech savvy people. Might be a little bit intimidated by this. Whereas the Note 4 is the complete opposite. The amount of exclusive features packed into this device is insane. There's a multi-window function which allows you to use 2 apps at the same time. These of course have to be supporting the feature, but it does work very smooth and it's great. If, for example, you need to use Google Maps on one window and Google Chrome in another, well, you can do that. You have that option. And of course you can resize the windows. There's a fingerprint scanner, so you can use that for an unlock security feature. There's the S Pen stylus, which is not just an ordinary stylus, it has a whole bunch of functions built into it that are exclusive to the stylus alone. And it performs rather quick, and its sensitivity is great, and the text recognition is excellent. There's also the ability to wear gloves by increasing the touch sensitivity of the screen. The stock video player allows you to pinch and zoom into videos. You can customize the notification toggles, but the S Finder and Quick Connect in the notification window is rather annoying, and you can't remove them. Furthermore, to keep in mind, the system settings menu is a huge giant mess. But moving along, there's also a heart rate sensor at the back, which is actually fairly accurate. Now let's not forget that both devices are phones, so in terms of call quality, they perform rather equal. They're not great, they're not bad, they're just okay. But when it comes to the better multimedia device, this can be argued a lot, but the fact that they both have large screens, and the Nexus 6 screen is a little bit larger and it has dual front-facing speakers, the Nexus 6 is the better multimedia device. So let's simplify and break down the comparison. The Nexus 6 has a great screen, great front-facing speakers, which is always a treat on a smartphone, fast Android updates because it's a Nexus device, and because it is a Nexus device, that also means in terms of software it's easy to modify. However, if you do something wrong, you could permanently damage your device, so it's a risk you're going to have to be willing to take. Not only that, we also finally have some decent picture quality in the camera, which has always been a problem with Nexus devices. But there's still a lot of problems which Google still hasn't learned from. The first, of course, is the poor notification toggles. It's not easy to change the mobile data on and off. You can't switch from sound alerts to vibrate alerts with a button toggle. You have to change the volume. There's no silent mode. I do know that there's a priority notification, but that requires tweaking and personalization. That's not a fast, convenient option. There's also no mirror cast. There's no external storage option either. And of course, the back button is on the left side, which a lot of people are right-handed, which is bizarre. Because it is software-based, you should have had the option to switch the location of the back button. And that of course also leads to the next thing, the device physically is too large. And the interface is not easy for people to learn if they're new to Android or if they're not tech savvy. Whereas the Note 4 also has an amazing screen, it's slightly better than the Nexus 6 because of its saturated colors, which you can turn on and off. It has one of the best cameras you can get on a smartphone right now, and the camera app is easy to use and it has a ridiculous amount of functions available. It has a lot out of the box. It's the complete opposite in terms of software compared to the Nexus 6. There's a crazy amount of options that are exclusive to the Note 4, which you can turn on and off. And of course there's also that S Pen stylus, which works fantastic. There's a lot of connectivity options like Mirrorcast, the heart rate sensor, download booster. In fact, there's just way too many. There's more than 50 exclusive features to the Note 4. I had to make a separate video. You can find a link to that video in the video description. And generally speaking, has all the software features the Nexus 6 has almost, but more. But the Nexus 6 has some advantages over the Note 4. That of course is that the Note 4 only has a single rear speaker. Despite it being very loud, the problem is it's still only one speaker on the rear side. A lot of things in the notification bar can't be removed and they take up quite a bit of space, and the system settings menu is a giant cluttered mess which might be confusing for some people to navigate and use. Overall, people have difference in opinion for these two phablet-like devices, but sure to mention your opinion in the comment section below. But for me, that's it. So if you guys found this video useful, be sure to check out my Facebook, Google+, Twitter links, a whole bunch of videos for the Note 4 and Nexus 6 also in the video description. Hit the like button, it does help, subscribe, and thanks for watching.